Call this regular city council meeting to order. Invocation by Pastor Curtis Franks, Crossroads Apostolic Church.
Lord, we come before you today on behalf of our community and our leaders in our community. We ask that you will bless them and use them for a good, positive purpose. I ask that this meeting go smoothly and well and be productive. I ask that you will lead us and guide us in every decision we make. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Alderman President Alvier. I'd like to recognize the heroes of Elm Street. The other day, 4 gentlemen of our community came to the rescue of a person that had a car fire, pushed a car out of the garage. Only minimal damage to the garage and none to the house. So I want to recognize these gentlemen and congratulate them on a deed well done. Lukus, McCleod, I don't think he's here tonight. Tim Brown, Gary Edwards, and Jimmy Thompson. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to the meeting. Shake the hands of the alderman, and I got cake for you and your family and my company.
Thank you.
Thank you, heroes. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Archie's got something to do. You want to have to come back here and do it? Or?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Back here.
Okay. You want to read this?
Well, I don't condone pushing a burning vehicle, but we do want to recognize your bravery from the fire department, so I'm going to read what this says, but everybody's name is different, so you're not all getting the same one. But basically it says, while you're going about your normal day, you witnessed an emergency and put your life on the line to help your fellow citizens. This can be simply defined as an act of bravery. The community should be proud to know that when the need arises, you can and have gone above and beyond the call to help your fellow man. A home is where we make memories, store our possessions, and find comfort in the presence of our friends and family. Your quick actions by you and 3 others significantly limited the damage to the structure, thereby saving the home located at 1621 West Elm. The fire department gives out challenge coins to our members as a token of acknowledgement when they perform above expectations. It's my privilege to present you with a fire department challenge coin as a sign of appreciation and praise for your bravery performed on 10/8 of 2020.
Those challenge points don't come easy.
Yeah.
They don't. All of them don't even have those.
I gotta try.
Gary Edwards.
We got a pass.
Tim Brown. Thank you. Now, if you get your picture taken with the chief, Owen and Leroy, I'll take your guys' picture. Thank you.
I don't know. We'll see. We might.
Thank you, Pastor Franks. Motion to approve the omnibus designation. Motion by Alderman Bryant, second by Alderman Bristol. Roll call.
Megan Bryan?
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Kathy
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Driscoll Teddy.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Minutes of the Ordinance Subcommittee held October 2nd, 2020. Minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held October 5th, 2020. Minutes of the regular meeting held October 5th, 2020. Minutes of the Lake and Airport Committee meeting held October 8th, 2020. Minutes for the Water Environmental Committee meeting held October 8th, 2020. Minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held October 15th, 2020. And minutes of the Ordinance Committee held October 15th, 2020. Motion to approve everything. Motion by Alderman Skoltedi.
Second.
Second by Alderman Dorsones. Roll call.
Megan Brant.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive. Driscoll Teddy.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Planning Commission recommendation. Chairman Hauser.
Thank you, Your Honor, Mayor, and all the Board of Aldermen. This evening, Jeff Peabody appeared before the Planning and Zoning Commission with a rezoning request for property known and addressed as 602 East Park, with a request to change the zoning from R2, residential 2, to C2, commercial 2. There was a lot of discussion about it, and with the help of our city attorney, some direction, a motion was made by Mr. Kretzer to, pardon me, actually that was Mr. McCleod, to recommend to the city council denying the C2 request and recommending a C1 rezone. And that was the only matters that were brought before Planning and Zoning Commission this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation?
Which includes the direction to the city attorney to prepare an appropriate ordinance to rezone the subject property to a C1 commercial district. To be taken up at the next meeting.
Motion by Alderman Driscoll.
Second.
Second by Alderman Bryant. Questions or comments from the Alderman?
Comment.
Alderman Landzadi.
Does this include, he asked a question about referring to a driveway. People listen to that, Rock?
As I read the zoning code, it doesn't prohibit, if you got gas stations and grocery stores, I mean, that's drive up as far as I'm concerned. I think we do a C2, we talk about drive-ins.
So the emphasis was,
I think it's talking about a different type of enterprise.
the emphasis was that he requested it for C2 drive-up. And then the C1 will, in fact,
I
include
think the
drive-up.
C1 would include a drive-up business. Now, of course, he has to deal with the state of Illinois with anything, getting out on Route 29, because that is not your jurisdiction.
So will that be included in the motion?
No, you have no jurisdiction to decide that.
Oh,
And I think he made, in the comments too, that I think if in fact he wants to develop that property, he's gonna take a look at those screening requirements and may have to come back to the zoning board of appeals for a variance, because you guys don't do variances.
okay.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Driscoll Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Brant.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Motion to approve the low bid from Excavating Partners Incorporated.
Resolution.
Resolution, I'm sorry. Council resolution of support and commitment of the ITEP grant fund.
What is this?
I'll let Mr. McEvers from Goodman Associates explain the ITEP.
The ITEP is an Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, and it's for streetscape work. So I distributed a map with the areas of improvement, along with a preliminary cost estimate. So the areas that would be in the grant, the ITEP grant, is along Poplar Street, the intersection of Poplar and North Main. And then there would be a little bit of work starting at the alley, some sidewalk parking spaces, down to North Main and West Vine. And then West Vine all the way down to Webster, and North Washington from Vine to Poplar Street. The ITEP grant is 80% funds come from the state or federal money, 20% is a local match. And those 80 and 20 is on eligible streetscape items. So if you look at the preliminary cost estimate, I mean, you don't have to read line for line of the various items. We'll just concentrate on the eligible items down at the bottom where it says the total estimated project cost. And there's some areas that are highlighted in kind of a orangish color. So in the first column there, we have the eligible items. And so there's $479,288.44. That would be local share. And $1.9 million would be the federal share, the ITEP money. Of the non-eligible items, there's $271,650. There again, preliminary cost. So we're looking at a total project cost of about $2.7 million. 1.9 being the ITEP funds, and local share of about $751,000. And that's based on the map that you see here. You know, it's going to be up to the council. You know, if the funds are there or where the funds could come from for local share. But you know, if you decide, hey, we just do not have that kind of money, we could come up with X number of dollars. Then we will modify the scope of the work to try to live within what, you know, monies that your local share might be available.
I think it was also stated that if it comes to pass that we can't afford to do the project, period, that there's no harm, no foul.
No, I believe that's right.
But this has to be in by
November
the 2nd.
November 2nd, that's the grant,
So,
grant deadline.
And if we don't receive the grant, then of course it's a dead issue
It's
also.
dead, yeah, it's dead
I
altogether.
think what we're asking for is just permission to pursue this grant that's available in the 2020 ITEP fund, which is, I think, 102 million, correct?
I believe that's right, over the entire
Maybe
state.
another state program, which we've been very lucky in the last year and a half of receiving grants, so
it's
why not, that's our luck.
approximately 2 years down the road. Is that correct?
Probably, you mean for construction?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if they go in, I would say that you won't hear nothing until late next year. So, you know, you wouldn't even be getting anything going for, at least 2 years.
We really don't have any obligations. It would be nice if we did have this and we could go forward with it, but even if we vote on it to proceed, we're still not obligated to spend any money at all at this point in time.
And this is maybe a dumb question, but did we spend money to have all this prepared?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I cannot answer that.
I would assume Benton Associates doesn't do anything for free, so it was.
So it already has cost us something.
Well, yes, it has cost for this, but we already agreed to do that.
Has
We
it
did?
been appropriated, these expenditures?
Not at this time.
You all had an email I sent out on October 15th. Remember that you cannot spend money unless you appropriate it. And if it's not appropriated, you can't spend money. Unless we get newfound money coming in from the feds or the state, then you can adopt a supplemental appropriation. So,
Have we talked about this in street and sewer or anything like that? No.
This just came up about a week ago, so.
Because it's such a short deadline that it has to be in, that we didn't have time for that. The deadline is November the 2nd.
assuming that the engineering bill is not that high, you may be able to put it into a contingency fund on your appropriation to cover this part of it,
Correct.
to get the application in. But if your next fiscal year appropriation, you need to put a line item for this project.
Yeah, it would have to go in next year's
Right,
budget.
yes.
Question. Phase 1 engineering preliminary environmental cost $19,080.20. Is that what this refers to, why you did this? Is that part of the?
No, this is just application of the grant.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right. You would not get into any type of engineering, true engineering cost until you receive the grant.
Okay.
I have a question. Even if we're not under any obligation, I can't see us having free $750,938 anytime soon to match our part.
Well, we'd have motor fuel tax money, we'd have DDD money, we'd have the money available if that's what the council voted to do. This is just all a preliminary sketch of what we're thinking we may, if we get the grant, what we may do, so.
Is it committed to this area, or is there other streets that could be applied to, or is it just gonna have to be for this?
There were certain guidelines that had to be followed, and I don't remember what
Right.
this area meant, all the.
I mean, the grant application, when it goes in, this is the areas that are going to be asked for in the grant for the ITEP.
In other words, you can't go in and overlay a street, that's not part of it, it has to be something streetscape where you can, it beautifies the whole area. But what you're looking at, the brick streets there, they were kind of picked to redo. Now, in doing that, they would be completely tore out, concrete base put in, the sand, and then the bricks would be laid so they're nice and smooth and even.
And this goes along with the East Main project and then the West Main project, with West Vine being just a block to the north, so that's why we picked this area.
I don't think we should be doing any
If you're putting brick streets back in for the historical society, or, you know, for the grant, I mean, because in St. Louis they did the same thing, they overlaid it with asphalt, and then they made them tear all the asphalt back off, put it back to the preservation of brick streets. And that's what I'm asking. So, can we get a grant for that, for historical preservation, because they are brick streets now? Could that be involved in that?
In the ITEP grant?
Yeah.
I don't believe, I mean, I can't 100% answer that. I mean, ITEP is just a transportation enhancement, and if I'm understanding you correctly, you're wanting to ask for another Illinois historic preservation type grant.
Possible grant.
But I don't know what's out there for Illinois historic preservation grants.
Could you check on that?
I can.
Any other questions or comments? Can we get a motion to approve the resolution to support the commitment of the funds for the ITEP grant?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Alderman Olive, second. Second by Alderman Dorchenez. Questions or comments? I think that the council needs to realize we have to spend a little bit of money, and a little bit of money, I'm talking maybe up to $1,000 to $1,500 to apply for this grant. And I think it's well worth the money, and then we can decide how we want to do the project. This was just all preliminary, but we need to have to get these approved so we can get everything turned in before the November 2nd deadline, so this is our last chance if we want to pursue this. Could be up to $2 million grant. So, roll call.
Kathy Driscoll?
No.
Lee Landzadi?
No.
Jim Olive?
Yes.
Chris Copetti?
Yes.
Megan Bryant?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2. Thank you. All right. Motion to approve the low bid from Excavating Partners Incorporated for the RP Lumber Sanitary Sewer Project at a cost not to exceed $59,445, pending receipt of the city's requisite form contract, performance bond, and certificate of insurance. Motion to approve the low bid.
So
Motion by Alderman Skoltedi, second.
Second.
Alderman Olive, questions or comments? We put this out for bid, had 7 or 8 people bid it. The bids range from $60,000 to about $120,000. Our engineers thought the bid would come in at about $80,000 to $85,000, so we're very happy with the $59,445 bid. And Benton and Associates have worked with this company. I believe they're out of Palmyra.
Yes.
That's what Mr. Sleeman said, so it's roll call.
Lee Landzadi?
Yes.
Jim Olive?
Yes.
Chris Popetti?
Yes.
Megan Bryant?
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Motion to set the hours for trick or treating for Halloween 2020 for Friday, October 30th and Saturday, October 31st, 2020 from 5 p.m. till 8 p.m.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Driscoll.
Second.
Second by Alderman Bryant. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Jim Olive?
Yes.
Chris Popetti?
Yes.
Megan Bryant?
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll? Lee Landzadi?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Motion regarding the November 3rd, 2020 election holiday pending state of Illinois court ruling. I don't think we really need to, the court ruled that the municipalities did not have to close
Okay,
on election day, so I don't think we really need to vote on this.
correct.
That was the last ruling that came out of Springfield, I believe, on Thursday or Friday afternoon. Okay. Motion to approve the low quote for crack sealing to runway 9 and 27, that's the east-west runway, from Kenny Contractors, Inc. at a cost not to exceed $20,600, pending receipt of the city's requisite form contract, performance bond, and certificate of insurance. Motion by Alderman Dorchenez, second by Alderman Bryant. Questions or comments?
Did
Comment?
you find out what I was asking?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And did you get any other bids in or anything?
We got the other bid, and we were supposed to get one from another company today, and they called and said they would not bid, right?
I never got a call from them.
Okay.
Okay.
I had one question too. My concern was the significant difference in the bids.
Quotes. They are
Close.
quotes.
Quotes, okay. I just want to make sure that, you know, we've had a problem in the past where somebody did something, quoted something, and they didn't use prevailing wage. It just was, did they use this, did they have, Andy said that.
Andy.
I can answer this. I talked to our engineer from CMT about this regarding why there could be such a price difference. I did call Kenny Construction. They will use prevailing wage, and that is in that quote. The reason Chris thought that there could be such a difference between the bid, or the quotes, I'm sorry, is that they may have some material left over that they want to use by the end of the year. Dunn Company could be booked out and would be hard for them to get it done by the end of the year, is why their price would be higher. And Kenny Construction may not have any work going on, so they're looking to kind of fill out the end of the year kind of a thing. So that's what the engineer and I discussed today, so that's why we ended up with that quote.
And Chris Groves did recommend Kenny. Roll call.
Chris Popetti?
Yes.
Megan Bryant?
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll?
Yes.
Lee Landzadi?
Yes.
Jim Olive?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. City attorney update.
Two quick matters. You got an email from me to the attorney to Burnett Trust easement agreement. I don't know what the holdup is. I don't have it yet, but I did reply to that email, so I will check again tomorrow. CTI Tech, it did send late this afternoon. I think it replied to all of you as well. So now we can get to work on putting some kind of an agreement together for their intended place on the water tower. I just glanced at it. Does anybody have any questions that we want to pose to Mr. Williams as to what they want to do? Okay, and I'll go forward with the agreement. That's it.
All right. Mayor, update. Thank you to the alderman. We will soon start two sewer projects, one on Route 104 and one on West Franklin. 2 nights ago, I attended the Safe Passage fundraiser. This is a program that I, along with Chief Wheeler, believe in. Our thanks go out to Denise Evans for continuing her unending support and enthusiasm to helping others. Earlier tonight, we honored 4 outstanding citizens as they came to the aid of a person in need. My thanks go out to them personally. The city is picking limbs up in each ward. Anyone that we may have missed is asked to contact their alderman or myself. We will begin to demolish a house on South Walnut Street this week and another one on Melrose Lane in the coming weeks. My congratulations and great, my secretary misspelled the word, but go out to all city and area firefighters for controlling many separate fires in our surrounding rural areas. My congratulations for a job well done. Chief Aderman received word earlier today that we have been approved for the $460,000 that we submitted for reimbursement through the CURES Fund. We should be receiving a check in a week to 10 days, correct? This week there will not be a street and sewer or public facility meeting, but starting November 1st, I urge all aldermen to attend all committee meetings, whether you're on that committee or not, as we will discuss many important issues that pertain to all of our residents. Please put the time in so that all wards are represented and all issues can be thoroughly discussed. Thank you very much. Committee reports. Discussion and/or motions to approve, adopt, and/or deny, and/or table, and/or amend, and/or refer to an appropriate committee in whole or in part the matters regarding the following subject matters discussed at the committee level. Ordinance Subcommittee.
Okay, so quick question before I read this. If I want to amend that, do I do it before I read it, or do I read it and then I do it?
You can suggest an amendment now, and if it doesn't get a second, then you're gonna go back to the original motion.
Okay. I would like to ask for an amendment.
Okay.
In the minutes, I think, I don't know where the confusion was, but I think when we left the committee, we had the understanding that the city would pay for the repairs on city property, period. The minutes read that if the city's not able to do the work itself, that the homeowner will secure a plumber, and I don't think that was the intention of the motion. The intention of the motion was that the city completely deal with their part on their own. So if for some reason there's 5 sewer breaks and we can't get to it, then we would hire a plumber to do the work on our behalf. And nothing to do with the homeowner.
That's your motion. I'll second the motion with a comment.
Motion by Alderman Bryant, second by Alderman Dorchenez. Comments or questions? Alderman Dorchenez.
This is something that I tried to get done about 10 years ago, and I think that the citizens at Taylorville don't realize, they don't understand how this works, and so we sometimes go by the procedure that we've got in place. Sometimes we don't. And what I mean by that is, and I don't want to bore you with this, but I think it's important. If coming from your house, the sewer that comes from your house to the trunk line that carries all of the sewer for the whole block, that is called a service line, and it goes and hooks into what they call a tap, and the tap is what goes onto the trunk line. And so years ago, I said 10, I don't know how many exactly it was, but years ago there was always an argument that would come up when we would discover the city would be called to investigate the sewer problem at a residence. The sewer department would go to the residence, and they would put a camera in the line and find out that the sewer tap was broken. Okay. Then the debate began then, whose fault was it? Was it the homeowner's fault that the tap broke? The city always said it was theirs. Of course, the homeowner would say it was the city's fault, when in fact it was neither person's fault. A homeowner can't make the tap break. The city can't make the tap break. It's a thing that happens. For example, if you had small earthquakes over a period of time that would maybe cause the sewer tap to come loose from the service line, It could be, like garbage trucks that are heavily laden, going down alleys and stopping at the same place all the time. I think that is part of it. You can have just a normal crack in the line, in the service line, water leaks into the ground, and then when it gets underneath where the service line is hooked into the tap, the service line has a tendency to want to drop, and when it drops, then the sewage is going into just the ground, and then I think that is part of the problem. So really, it was, in my opinion, was neither the homeowner's fault nor the city's fault. It's just an act of nature. And so we have a sewer department, and so I always profess that the sewer department, if the tap is broken, and that's on city property, the city should fix that tap. We've got a sewer department to do it. The homeowner would cost the homeowner nothing, and it wouldn't cost the city any extra money because we're paying those people to work in the sewer department anyway. So what it would cost is, it would cost the replacement of the tap. And the tap, as I understand, depending upon what the size of the trunk line is, there's two different types of traps. One is about $60 and one is about $80. So that was the amount of the expense. So I couldn't get that passed. The council wouldn't pass it, but there was a compromise. And so what the city decided to do, the council decided to do, was to, anytime there was a tap that was broken, the plumber would fix it, or the city would fix it sometimes, depending on what the workload was. So if the tap was broken, and the city would pay up to 1/2 of $3,500. So if the plumber charged $3,500, the city paid $1,750, and the homeowner paid $1,750. It became aware to us recently that all of the sewer tap repairs were coming in at the same amount of money, regardless of how expensive it was. So, in looking into it further, my recommendation is once again has been what it was 10 years ago, that if the tap breaks, the procedure normally would be, and that if you're a homeowner, you probably don't know this, but you're a homeowner, if you have your sewer stopped up for whatever reason, then what you should do is you should call the city. Don't call a plumber, you call the city. The city would go down and take a camera, run it down the trunk line, and inspect the tap to see if the tap is broken. If the tap wasn't broken, then the city would notify the homeowner that it's not a broken tap, your sewer stopped up, it's got to be in your service line, so now you need to take care of that. That is your responsibility, and that's your expense. And so what it is on the street, if your service line enters the city's property, the city owns the property from the middle of the street 25 feet towards your property. Okay, so if you have it, so what I was suggesting we do, and that's what the motion is tonight, is that if the tap is broken, we inspect the tap is broken, the city fixes that tap at no charge to the homeowner. If the problem is on the homeowner's property, the service line, then all of that is the homeowner's property. But the city would pay for all the broken taps that are broken. And it's not going to cost us any extra money because of the fact that our people are hired to do that, except one problem we are encountering is we used to have 8 people in the sewer department. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we only got 2 now. So I've made it kind of simple, but by the same token, if, for example, those people are working someplace else and you have a report for a sewer that's got a problem, well, you can't work on both of them at the same time. So in that case, if it was an emergency, then the city would have to hire a plumber to fix that tap, and then we would have an expense. So we either have to get some more people, and what I suggested was, I'm not about to tell Mike that I know his job, I don't, but to me, whatever the most important thing is at the time for the street sewer department is what you take care of. In other words, if you got all your personnel picking up limbs, and this is maybe not a good example, but if you got everybody picking up limbs, and you have a problem, and the homeowner's got a problem with the sewer, you send your troops to fix the sewer. You quit picking up limbs. That's my opinion. And how many people have we got in the street and sewer, Mike? 8 total?
9 total.
Total of how many? 8?
9.
9? Okay. That's my suggestion. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. He's the superintendent. He knows what's the best thing to do. So what I'm suggesting, and the subcommittee recommended, was that what I've just said. If the problem is in the sewer that's on city property, the city fixes it. If the sewer problem is on the homeowner's property, the homeowner fixes it. So it's kind of a black and white thing, and what it prevents is that there's a lot of people in Taylorville that are widowers. They don't have a lot of money, and can't afford a catastrophic problem like this, and so this would solve that problem. And so that's all I've got.
All right.
That's it?
Any other comments or questions? Comment, Alderman Dolan?
The only thing that, one thing we've got to look at, if the city has to call a plumber, then they would have to, and I think Rocky can correct me, that would have to be at prevailing wage compared to if the homeowner called them, it would be at whatever rate they charge.
Correct.
So just have to keep that in mind, that in the event that we have to do, which I would think is going to be quite often, that the sewer rates will go up.
You think it will be quite often that all of his guys are doing something and can't fix the tap?
Well, if we do the work, we should be saving money.
I get the feeling that nobody wants to do these taps. Like, that no offense, Mike, but that your office just like doesn't want to do them. Is that wrong?
It isn't that we don't want to do them. A lot of the ones we're going to work on right now is 22 feet deep. All right, so we had to have some assistance. The last one we got into was 21 feet and had all the sand. Cost the city about $85,000. You know, that is the way the city is kind of progressing. You know, these sewers were put in 1890. You know, houses are built in 1890 out of wood. They're above ground. There's nothing that gets into them. Sewers are underground, pressure on top of them. Things are collapsing, breaking, roots gets into them. We're going to work on a situation tomorrow that possibly has a broken tap that is inside of a commercial building that would be underneath a concrete floor. So in the past, so they built an entire building over top of our sewer that someone has to possibly repair. And so if the city has to incur that cost to repair that tap.
That wouldn't be on city property, that'd be private property, correct? I mean,
It's
that's
our
private
sewer
property.
main. Do we just not fix?
That's not what he said. Motion, the way he explained it was on city property.
On city property.
Where the sewer line's at.
And my question was, is there ever a time where there's 3 taps broke in one day?
Yes,
All the time?
usually. I talked to 2 different plumbers today and they have 5 taps, sewer lines that they need to repair.
I still don't, I think, I still personally, in just my opinion, and all in all, we don't expect the homeowner to, I mean, the homeowner doesn't expect us to come into their house and on their property and for us to pay for their property. So why would we expect them to pay for our property? That's my whole thing. If it's our property, it's our problem. If it costs $80,000, then I guess we figure that out, it's our problem. But if we're gonna throw it on the homeowner, I'm telling you, you come to my house and you say, sorry Megan, it's your problem and it's gonna be $80,000, you just wiped me out. You just bankrupt me over your property problem. So I think however we have to figure out to get the job done, we figure it out, but it's not my problem if it's on city property. Just my thoughts in a nutshell.
Well, that's my point, is that,
No.
you know, I pay, on my water bill, I pay into the sewer fund, I pay property taxes, and I'm willing for my money, just like when I pay, and that's to me is like buying insurance on my car. I buy insurance on my car and hope I never use it, so that money just flies out of my wallet, and I'm willing to take my money that I'm paying into the sewer fund, whatever that is, property taxes and whatever, and the water bill, and I'm willing to share that with Megan for her 80,000. My money, I don't have a problem with that. And I don't know why we have a sewer department if we're not gonna fix those problems that are most needed by the citizens of Taylorville.
Mr. Oliver?
Wait, and I'm not against any of that. I'm just want everybody to make sure that you are aware that like, Mike's got one down now, I guess you're referring to, it's deeper than what we can work on, because you can't just go dig a hole and start working on it, because OSHA comes into the equation, that there has to be steel cages and everything, of which the city does not have the cages to go down to that depth. So there will be occasions when we cannot do it. We're thinking of a shallow sewer, which, yeah, that'd be no problem. But most of the time when we get into problems, the one that was down on Apostolic Street, well, 21 foot down, run into that honey sand or whatever you call it. I mean, that was, no, that was way out of our reach.
But it's not gonna change the point though, right? I mean, we're still gonna have to pay somebody else to do it, whether we say it's on our property
Yeah,
or not.
I'm just saying that this is not gonna cover all of that. And this will probably be the minor side of it.
City Attorney Romano?
A couple of drafting concerns for me is, I heard him mention about our sewer line on private property, so how do we cover that? The way it was described by Mr. Dorchinez is that's only if it's on our city property, our right of way, not if our sewer line is in private property. That's issue number one. How do I draft that? Number two is, if you're talking $80,000, who's got the authority? You got the waive bids, anything over $25,000 has to be bidded unless you have a 2/3 vote of the council to hire a plumber to do that work. And how are we gonna do that?
How did they just do it with the Poplar Street sand thing? How'd you guys do that for the $80,000?
It was bid.
It was bid? Okay.
And the first company
So
that told
So
us,
I heard this was like an emergency, they couldn't get to it, so we're gonna have to bring it back to the council, aren't we?
Well, the Poplar Street issue, we started to do it, it got too big for us, too deep, so then we called Tullis to help us out. He couldn't do it, so we ended up calling Petersburg Plumbing to do it, who's done a lot of our sewer work.
But you
So
came here,
that's a
you had a
complete
motion
different
here to do
issue,
that.
because that was all in the alleyway, and that was all on our property.
Right.
That whole thing, so we were responsible for that no matter what. But the issue is tonight is, on a sewer issue, a normal homeowner where the sewer line runs through our alley or to our street, who's responsible for what? I think Mr. Dorchinez would like to see the city pay for whatever on city property,
I
the
get that.
homeowner pay for whatever on their property.
I get that, that's the easy part. What about his scenario?
Well, to me, that's on private property.
Okay, then that's all
Correct.
right. That's how I would view it, but it's our sewer line.
That just sucks.
who gave them permission to build over the top of our sewer?
Probably somebody was elected before you.
Probably our senior alderman.
Are you saying that, let me get a clarification. Are you saying that the trunk line, the collector line is on private property?
We have numerous of them in town, yes.
We have, I'm not aware of anywhere that we've done that since I've been on the council, that we would run a trunk line on somebody else's property and claim that's our trunk line.
We got trunk lines running where there's no easement.
That's what I'm saying. You gotta get an easement to put a trunk line on my house.
But
But we've already had the trunk line and they've built these properties on top of it, correct?
the one we just worked on off of Wilson Street, was on private property because there's no easement through the property.
Well, my point is that I think that the catastrophic expenses ought to be shared amongst all the people in Taylorville, period, because we're all paying into that sewer fund somehow, either water, on the water bill or tax, I don't know, all the different ways, but I'm just saying is that I'm willing to share what I put in there. I just, and hope I never have a problem.
Good.
Should we put something in there about residential?
Or put in there a provision, you know, like outside the scope of the norm, feel free to come to the city and talk to us about maybe other arrangements. Like this guy, he comes and he says, somebody way back when built this building right on top of this is your main, your trunk, your saddle, your whatever they are. You know, then maybe we say, okay, it's private property, so it's your problem. But since that is the city's, you know, we'll go ahead and we'll give you the saddle and the tap, you know. I don't know, can we just leave it up that maybe, you know, upon special circumstances?
Case by case basis from time to time.
Yes,
on the
so that if something outside normal stuff happens, just my idea, again.
Does anyone feel a need to table this back to committee, and have it back to committee?
This has been going on for 2 months.
I'm just getting, because
You
we're
get
sure
to go
doing a
to
lot
the
of
special-
dialogue
You get to
here.
go to the special committee meeting.
I'm just saying, we got a lot of dialogue going on, so I wanna make sure all questions are answered and such.
I think the motion is to direct me to come up with something, and you guys take it from there, based upon his motion. I'll do my best.
You are
That's it.
My only concern is, are we trying to fix a problem that really doesn't exist? The only reason we're bringing this up is because of the issue with the Norris property. And when we were shown, we reacted like 11 times in the last 5 years and paid people a different amount. So are we overreacting, trying to fix an issue that really isn't there, and really doesn't pertain too much?
Well, I think we've got an issue because of the fact that I was just told that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, there's an elderly lady that can't afford an expense on a sewer line in the, out in the Holly Hanger area.
On the street.
And this is part of the problem. And if the city was paying for their part, I don't know if she could afford to pay for her part, but you know, this only makes sense to me. If you can tell me why it's wrong, and you can take, I use common sense reasoning. You can change my mind, but nobody's told me that all the people that I've talked to about it, and I've had other people that have agreed with me, and none of them have disagreed. That I have a group of people that I counsel with every morning, normally at McDonald's, and we got a consensus opinion is I'm doing the right thing by doing it.
Alderman Lukus.
What Mike is referring to, and Ernie's referring to, is right across the street from me. Fact is, Phil Martin's daughter, where she lives at, is on the same side. And from the sidewalk into their house, there's no problem. It's in the street. When they had a water freeze line last year, you fixed that problem, but it's settled, and the UPS trucks and the FedEx trucks, and we had a garbage truck today come down there with a dumpster on it. I mean, he must have been going 15 to 30 miles an hour, hit that, shakes like the devil inside my house. So I can imagine what's happening on the rest of the people's street. But the problem is the lady right across the street, and Mike came out and looked at it, she was in a dilemma. She contacted Roto-Rooter, am I right?
Correct.
And they gave her a total to fix it with the plumber of $17,000. Am I correct?
7.
Well, and then they moved it up a little bit because they had to do some other work to our tap. Well, when you said you looked at it with the camera, the tap was broke. So what she's doing right now, in order to get her water out to the sewer, she's not putting any paper, toilet paper or anything in that, and the same with Jane, because if she does that, it boils up through the standpipe. And you could just sit there and watch it. I mean, it was boiling up like a fountain. Am I right, Mike?
Correct.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Ernie's recommending this to be done, and I'm a core, and I think everything Ernie is talking about is our responsibility out there. First of all, when they put that in, McIntyre put this in years ago. He didn't do it right, did he, Ernie? We know that. We know that he didn't put those taps in right because on my side of the street, it's only like 5 foot from the curb. So, I mean, it's not gonna affect mine. But where their is 25 foot from the sidewalk out to that tap. And that's what's causing these trucks. What we need to do, these service vehicles like UPS and FedEx ought to have a speed limit because they come down through our street. They go around from Springfield Road, they come around and have to make a stop sign. Other than that, they fly through there. And I'm talking about flying through there. Sometimes they don't even stop.
I have another comment that one of the things that I did was, for example, what you can do, and we experienced that down here in my ward just recently, is that when you buy a house, you can have there's people that professionals will do a home inspection, and probably one of the, to me, from what I've learned now about sewers and sewer taps, is probably the most important thing that you can, a home inspector could inspect would be that sewer and sewer tap. Not the furnace. Furnace would cost you, if you had to replace it even, it wouldn't cost you near that much. But they don't do that. I called a realtor in town, one of the prominent ones, asked them if, for example, if I bought a house, and this happened on Main Street about 2 months ago in my ward, the person bought the house. Shortly after he bought the house, he had a problem with the sewer. We had to dig it up. So he got hit with probably an existing problem, I'm guessing, or it was a bad coincidence. And Mike and his crew, they fixed it. They dug it up, dug up the tap, and had to replace I think some of the trunk line had to be replaced. But we had to do it. So, you know, when you buy a house, and you don't, nobody inspects your sewer or sewer tap. That's the most important, and they don't do it. Plus the fact that you can't buy insurance for it.
All right, Mr. Olive, one last comment or question?
And I just think when we redo this ordinance, that it needs to have things in it like you just said when the sewer is completely on the other side of the street. That there is a, so as you form this new ordinance, take them things into consideration. Sewers where there's no easement, I mean, where they're too deep, which probably is going to be the larger case of anything. I understand the part about trying to take the burden off of the homeowner, but I think that I think the reason why we allowed it to go the way it went is because we weren't looking at the bills and wasn't going over them. So I think there needs to be something in the ordinance stipulating that.
One more comment.
All right, Lee, last comment.
Last comment. And I've talked to Mike about this. I said, I think because he's had people quit out of the sewer department. He's down to 2 people. First of all, the positions are available, aren't they? They are available. So why can't we decide to put more people on that?
Your personnel check.
Well, I'm just telling you, I think we need to put additional people into that office to help him out to get the problem fixed.
Then put it on your personnel.
I'll put it on my personnel. And I think that finance, of course, in finance, we're gonna say we can't afford it. But in that respect, we need to put these people on. If the positions are available and that money's out there, let's put them back on so we can have his help. He needs help to do this.
All right, you have a
That's
motion.
I want to put that on the record. Put that on the record too.
Roll call on the amended motion.
Megan Bryan?
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll?
Yes.
Lee Landzadi?
Yes?
Jim Olive?
Yes.
I don't have no time.
Chris Popetti?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Lake and Airport. Alderman Dorchenez.
Thank you, Your Honor. First motion that came out of the Lake Airport Committee meeting was a motion to recommend to the City Council to direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance and make the required changes to Title VII of the Lake Taylorville Code to eliminate the language referring to waiting lists for lake lots, campgrounds, and boat docks, and replace that language with obtaining same by using a lottery system, with table residents being first in the lottery and the non-residents following a separate lottery. And after a second, I'd like to make some comments to the city
All
attorney.
right. Motion by Alderman Dorsones.
Second.
Second by Alderman Skoltedi. Questions or comments? Alderman Dorsones.
Right. Mr. Romano, this is kind of a wordy motion, and really I talked to the mayor about this today. And you know, it doesn't have all those as detail. It doesn't have the details in it that I want. And I think that some of what I'm attempting to do here is it wouldn't be put in the ordinance. It would be put into a procedure. In other words, here's the way that we're going to establish. We have a waiting list now we got a lot of problems with it. And so what I'm saying is that we need to change the ordinance, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and the consensus has been they agree that people have been on that list for umpteen years. There's a lot of people that have been on there trying to work their way up, and the way that the waiting list works, it doesn't work out. So this gives everybody a chance to be able to get a lake lot that doesn't have one. And so what I'm saying there is that when we make the changes to the ordinance, it doesn't have to be all the details, but I would like you to refer to a procedure of how this works. So the procedure would be external from the ordinance. And I talked to the mayor because I think that a lot of these things that, like these procedures, how you go about doing this, in fact, I volunteered to write this up and to then submit it to the committee, the lake committee, and then from the lake committee, they would make a recommendation to the city council. And once the city council approved the procedure, that procedure would be under the jurisdiction of the city clerk. In other words, that would be on file in where we would have nothing but procedures from different departments on how to do something. And then a copy of that procedure would be given to whatever department superintendent it would be. In this case, it would be the lake superintendent. And so that this occurs only once a year, and then if we have changes in superintendents, then when the time comes to do the lottery, then he's got a procedure on how to do this. And then, so for example, something that occurred recently, we have I'm chairman of the airport committee, and as you know, the airport superintendent is retired. And so one of the issues that came up was we have two different types of gasoline at the airport. One's gas and one's Jet A, and I don't want to bore everybody with this, but when we get gas in for, let's say, the Jet A, we have gas existing in the tank, and we've got new gas coming in that's going to join that old gas. So we're charging, to make a profit, we have to charge whatever we pay for it plus a little bit extra. And so in order to find out what the gas price is, there's a procedure there to figure it out. So that'd be one of those things that a procedure would be made, and once again, go through the committee, go through the council, and then it would be retained for future use. Andy's caught on to that. He's taken over my responsibility of calculating that gas and Jet A now. But anyway, it's just a suggestion that I made to the mayor that it's food for thought. I think that we ought to implement something like that, and it would help us when we have new superintendents, new mayors, new aldermen, all the way around.
The motion is to go to a lottery system for the lake lots, campgrounds, and boat docks. Comment, Alderman Olive?
As I talked to you about it today also, it is kind of my contention, because I've had people complain to me that we're going to the lottery system, that they don't care for it. They said they think that the present list can be altered and put made right. But it's kind of and I don't know, that we, being the city, are the ones that let this list and everything get in the shape that it's in because we didn't abide by our own rules and regulations. That's my major concern with it, that I think if you're gonna write this thing out, then you need to dot all the i's, cross all the t's, and make sure everything is covered in one ordinance, rather than leave it up to, well, we'll change it a little here, a little there, because we'll be right back in the same mess that we presently are.
Okay, well,
I have some questions.
let me respond to that.
Go ahead, respond to the question.
Okay, well, first of all, the people that did, and when they, the people that are talking to you, I'll tell you, I never got one phone call. We had we had 3 meetings on this, 3 months. The last meeting, I told that the room was filled with respondents, the people that, they want to leave the waiting list as is, because what they're trying to do, they're trying to circumvent the system as far as I'm concerned. They've got like 5 family members on the waiting list, and they're trying to get all the good lots. That's my opinion. And this will make it more fair, because it would be the lottery system and be a drawing. The people that are saying that, and it just burns me when I hear this, they tell me that that's the way it's always been. That's not an argument for me. And if you've got a better way than the lottery, I'd like to hear it. I've gotten nothing that I've heard is better than that. And if I heard it, I would be interested in changing my mind. But it seems like to me that if you got 10 lots available and everybody that wants a lot, you throw your name in the hat, you pull them out, and everybody's got an equal chance to get a lot. Now what they do is, for example, they'll have several different people in the family be on the waiting list. And when it comes to, let's say I've worked my way to number 1 on the list, okay? So the first, here's the first lot available, and it's Ernie, do you want it? No, that's not my stuff. To my standard, I don't want that. So it goes on to the next person. But I stay as number 1 on the list next year. So I just stay there until I get a prime lot, and then I'll say yes. Okay? I don't think that's fair, especially if you've already got a lot. And not most, I can't say that. There's a lot of people that have their names on that list. They've already got a lot. Let's open those lots up to people that don't have lots. Instead of having a monopoly on those lots, and that's not right.
Well, and I understand that point of it. My point is that who let that happen?
That's the way it's always been, Jim. I'm sorry.
My brief, not really any question, just comment is, if we are, as the wording in here says, that the system being a Taylorville residents be first in the lottery, why haven't we been first before? People have circumvented that before. They haven't. So how will this lottery change that and address that situation?
Well, I think in order to be on the Taylorville list, you have to show your resident.
What have they done before? Have they shown somebody a friend's address or something else? How have they gotten around it before that they won't apply it to this as well? I want to be sure that loophole is closed.
I'll guarantee you, I'll fix it. I will make sure that every person that's in the first drawing is a resident of
They
Taylorville.
always have been.
They always have to.
So how did the ones that are owners of, runners of a lot
I'm not
right now?
aware of that.
Well, okay, for an instance, this may or may not happen. Say my brother wants a lot, he lives out of Taylorville. I draw it, and then I give it up, I can give it to my brother, that's per state.
So how do we close that loophole?
Well,
Will it be closed with the lottery is what I want to know.
Well, the lot has to go to a Taylorville resident, and then he has the same right as everyone else. He can give that up, or he can give it to a family member who may or may not live in Taylorville. So that's.
So should we allow subleasing of it?
Well, we're not really, we're having that guy give it to a relation, which we allow. Now, if you want to change that part of the ordinance, for the person, and then you get the same, right now we require 1 name per lot. Okay, do we want to do that, or do we want to allow 5 names on that lot? That's another issue, but tonight's the issue that are we going to do lottery? We have 3 or 4 months to discuss.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. We discussed this at length at committee, and this is just one little section of a broader area. So we're trying to fix one thing, and we've got 5 or 10 more to come. So we'll fix this and address the other one.
And that gets back to my mayoral comment. I wish every alderman would come to every committee where we can discuss this in length and don't have to discuss it at council meetings. So, roll call.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
No.
Chris Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1.
Thank you. The next motion was to recommend the city council to approve ordering the hardwired card reader from ePay at no charge and having the Lake Department purchase the materials needed to run the wires and install the weatherproof box at a cost not to exceed $2,500. I'll make that informed motion.
Motion by Alderman Dorchenez, second by Alderman Olive. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Chris Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, the last motion is to recommend to the city council to approve the purchase of metal signs for the marina, campground, and tent areas at a cost not to exceed $1,000. I'd like to make that informed motion.
Motion by Alderman Dorchenez, second by Alderman Driscoll. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Chris Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 6-0.
You want me to read?
Finance Committee, if you'd like to,
Sure.
Alderman Bryan.
That, okay. Go ahead.
Did you want to?
Larry had asked me to.
Well, then you should do it since
Go
he
ahead,
asked you
Mr.
to.
Olive.
Thank you. And Larry did, he called me this evening, he was in the hospital today and he wasn't able to attend tonight. The first motion, come out of Finance Committee with, to recommend the city council to approve the lighting audit with Jarvis Electric, put that in the form of a motion.
Motion by Alderman Olive,
Second.
second by Alderman Bryant. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Chris Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, next motion, to recommend the city council to reimburse Maggie Tarr for the amount of $2,500 to be paid from the BDD funds with the stipulations that the design becomes property of the city of Taylorville. Put that in form of motion.
Motion by Alderman Olive, second by Alderman Driscoll. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Chris Teddy.
Yes.
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, the next motion, I'd like to make a motion to table this item, and the reason why I'm asking to do that is because Larry has most of the information on this that I think he could present better to the council.
We have a motion to table the third motion, second. Motion by Alderman Olive, second by Alderman Dorchenez. Questions or roll call?
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Chris Teddy.
Motion carries 6-0 to table.
The next motion come out of committee was to recommend the city council to accept the audit report as presented at the finance meeting held on October the 5th, 2020. In the form of motion.
Motion by Alderman Olive,
Second.
second by Alderman Driscoll. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next motion to recommend the city council to authorize up to $20,000 for the street maintenance line item to repair vehicles as necessary and prepare specifications to bid and purchase heavy-duty tandem vehicles. Put that in form of motion.
Motion by Alderman
Second.
Olive, second by Alderman Bryant. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Chris Teddy. Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
The next motion is to recommend the city council to change the date of the November finance ordinance meeting to Wednesday, November the 18th, 2020.
Motion by Alderman Olive, second.
Second.
Alderman Bryant. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. The last motion, recommend to the city council to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Motion by Alderman Olive, second by Alderman Driscoll. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance Committee.
Thank you. Motion to recommend to the city council to direct the city attorney to amend the UTV ordinance to extend the time frame to year-round and remove sundown to sunup, and bring the ordinance back to committee for further review of cost prior to renewal period. That in form of motion.
Motion by Alderman Bryant, second by Alderman Luzzati. Comments or questions?
I'm just really sad that my buddy here is not.
Quick comment, and that you removed the sun up to sundown, okay.
We had that restriction that you couldn't write after sundown to
Okay.
sunup, except it makes no sense because carts aren't like that.
I mean, if, so that people could drive around at night, do they have lights and everything that are sufficient? Okay, as long as that's part of the.
It's part of the checklist to get a permit.
Got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next was motion to recommend to the city council to draft an ordinance to amend the city code to include carport recommendations and restrictions as discussed at the September 17th, 2020 ordinance committee meeting.
Direct the city attorney to prepare that.
Well, I haven't decided yet.
Motion by Alderman Bryant, second.
Second.
By Alderman Dorsones. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve and or ratify payment of bills. Mr. Olive, do you have Mr.?
No, Larry didn't have that list for me.
All right, so I assume everyone looked at the bills. Is there any questions or comments on the bills? We don't have to read them all?
I was looking forward to him doing that at the end, but I'm
He didn't
disappointed
make-
now. He's not gonna do that, especially after he wanted to do it.
2 hours later.
All right.
He didn't make any comments as to anything that needed pulled or anything, so I'm saying all of them.
So can I get a motion to approve the payment of bills?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Dorsones, second by Alderman Bryant. Roll call.
Kathy Driscoll.
Yes.
Lee Landzadi.
Yes.
Jim Olive.
Yes.
Chris Popetti.
Yes.
Megan Bryan.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Motion carries 6-0. Per subparagraph G of 5 ILCS 120/2.06, this portion of the city council meeting is reserved for any person wishing to address the council on any relevant subject matters concerning the city. The Illinois Open Meeting Act 5 ILCS 120/1 mandates no action shall be taken on subject matters not listed on the agenda, but the council may direct staff to address the topic or refer the subject matter to a future council and/or committee meeting. If anyone wishes to address the council, please provide your name and address. Limit your comments or presentation to 3 minutes and avoid repetitious comments. Anyone out there like to address the council? Seeing none, motion for adjournment.
So moved.
By Alderman Bryant, second by Alderman Popetti. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to adjourn at 8:00.